What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys are so excited. I hope you guys are so ready for the most impactful hour you have ever received in your entire life, filled with hope, positivity, encouragement, inspiration, motivation, and elevation, baby. So pull up a chair, pour up a couple shots, let your hair down, and kick your shoes off because you are about to receive the most impactful hour in your entire lives. I know you guys are ready because I know I am, and I can't wait, baby. Let's go! Woo!
Hello, how y'all doing? Hi, Joseph. I hear that you have a show, Not Famous, and wish you good luck with your show, and I thank you what you're doing for your audience and your people that you're trying to make impression on their life. So good luck with your show, and thank you for all you do. Bye, Joseph.
A spring in your step. There is a twinkle in your eye.
I can throw a rhyme down for you real quick. Yes, they call me Thrill. They say that I'm the man. You disagree? How could you? Let me make you understand.
Should we bring her on the show? Can anybody find me? And there she is.
Fresh as some bread. Pull right from the oven. When you feel rejected, you get some of your loving.
Me.
She looks wonderful. Mom looks amazing.
Somebody too. Okay, Mom, bugger off now. I've got to show it to you.
Like that?
Joseph Jaffe, ladies and gentlemen.
You just made the new intro of the show. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. And how and why would I be famous when April Rinne, Jaffe, sounds like Jaffe. April Rinne is in the studio. She is in the green room right now. She is smiling, and Glenn is smiling too. He says, hello, April. He stayed awake. He stayed awake to see you, April, because he normally goes to sleep. He turns into a peanut at about 9 p.m. Powerful Peanut is here. Speaking of peanuts, she says hi, she says hello, and she says, please say hi. I just did all three. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, as Jim Carrey would have said in The Truman Show. I am happy to see you guys. I forgot to tell you the other day that I just started cardiac rehab. Not cardio rehab, but cardiac rehab. One down, 35 sessions to go. This is part of my move back to the Peloton, back to what I hope will be full fitness. I think I've got the mental fitness, maybe a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of fog, but I want to get back to that physical fitness as well. So excited about that. That cardiac rehab, I do the 7 to 8 a.m. class. So tomorrow morning, late night Jaffe, and then a little bit of cardiac rehab. We do what we can in order to survive and thrive in an era of flux. Damn it, we're going to talk a lot about flux tonight. Flux happens. It's an exciting concept, and it's a very needed concept. Now, let's get a little serious for a moment. Today is World Alzheimer's Day. I love this tagline. It's very meaningful. Remember those who can't remember. Please God, in our lifetime, there will be a cure for dementia, for Alzheimer's, for everything, for cancer, for everything going on right now. I'm a big believer in the power of imagination, in the power of science, in the power of medicine, in the power of being able to dream big, because you never know what might happen. We can achieve anything if we set our minds to it. Manif is here and he says, hi, PP, Powerful Peanut, and Joe. I'm glad you are here, Manif. Wouldn't be the same without you, my friend. So let's get on with the show. As always, if you'd like to earn yourself a Jaffe coin, which is a little bit less than it was last week. It's about $6 and, 14 cents. It was about $7.14 last week. Crypto is having a bit of a tough week because of those, people in China. They just keep on seeming to hammer crypto. But you know what? You cut off one head of crypto and another two grow back. Crypto is here to stay, and so is the Jaffe coin. And as I said, if you would like to earn yourself a Jaffe coin, you can be a part of the Jaffe economy. Just go to rally.io/creator/Jaffe, buy yourself some Jaffe coin, hold the Jaffe coin. You do not have to send it to me. It's yours. You're part of the Jaffe economy. And right now, just pointing your phone at that QR code, you will get yourself a Jaffe coin. So enough about the Jaffe coin. Let's get on with the show. A reminder that we have reunion shows. So April, tonight's guest, and Jay, tonight's creator. You guys, if you're around and if you're about, you guys will be on next Friday's show. And it's an opportunity not only to bring back all of our guests and our creators from the week previously, but an opportunity to network, for them to meet each other. Almost knocked over my glass of wine. Cheers. Got a little bit excited over there. But that is the reunion show. And now you know. And very soon, only Jaffe coin holders will be able to attend. But don't worry, you only need one Jaffe coin to attend. And you can get a free one today. So the price of entry really is not onerous at all now, is it? So April is our guest tonight. Tomorrow, we will finally find out if his last name is Coetzee. We know April's last name is Rinne, not Rinne. But Coetzee will be my guest tomorrow, and I'm excited. John tweeted out the other day, and this is kind of crazy. He said, and I'll talk to him about it. He said he has made more money in 2021 from his creator coin, the smart coin, than he has from consulting this year, and he's had a good year consulting. That's crazy. He's not a braggadocious man. He's not, he's a very humble guy. But for him to share that, it kind of blew me away, and it just sounded amazing. So it just shows you the creation, the creativity, the creation of wealth, the creation of engagement in this Web 3.0 world. Amazing. Harold Kravitz is here. He says Melbourne has been shaking. Why? Was there an earthquake, or maybe just because I knocked my wine? I'm not really sure. Is it the reverberations of the show? We don't know, but I'm always glad when Mr. Harold Kravitz is here. So April Rinne, she is an advisor, a speaker, and author of Flux 8 Superpowers for Thriving in Constant Change, and she will be coming onto the show momentarily. And then afterwards, Jay Moonah isn't just a creator. He isn't just, the brains, the good looks, the talent behind Broke Fuse. But Jay is a social media icon. He's a legend. We know each other from years gone by. And it's just so great to have an opportunity to watch him in his element, doing what he does best, which is just performing and demonstrating that raw talent. Eyal Fischler is here, and he says, crypto-backed creators. That is part of the creator economy, part of the streaming era, part of Web 3.0, and Harold Kravitz agrees. So thank you guys for your engagement. Now let's talk a little bit about the subject of the hour, the idea behind April's book, and my interpretation behind it. The soliloquy today is called Flux. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, flux is the action or process of flowing or flowing out. It's also an abnormal discharge of blood or other matter from or within the body, which actually might very well have described my initial heart diagnosis to a T, a mitral valve prolapse with severe regurgitation brought about by ruptured chordae. Flux off is what I have to say to that. I had to think about that carefully. Now, let's get back to the original definition, shall we? And notably, the process of flow or flowing. As I know we're talking about surviving and thriving in chaos and change tonight, here's what I think about. I think about a raging current. Using this analogy, it's quite apparent that fighting against a raging current is just a recipe for disaster, an unwinnable scenario in which only one outcome is inevitable and guaranteed. Indeed, and instead, I should say, you just got to go with the flow, right? And move with the current. You can't fight against it. You have to move with it. You can even lie on your back and just let it take you where it will. Just go with the flow. Perhaps with some Tai Chi-like moves, you can even become a master of the current and use the flow to steer in a defined or deliberate direction. But how? It's not in our nature to submit to the flow. Our instinct is to resist, to push back, to resist. Also, submission is not considered to be active, proactive, or dynamic. It is a sign of weakness, is it not? Another expression of the word flux is the notion of uncertainty. My life is in flux at the moment. My job is in flux. The current economic climate is in flux. The flow in question is not us or ours. We are not in control. And our best case scenario is, like the phrase suggests, to just go with the flow. But what if it wasn't? What if we are the flow? And the flow represents motion, always in motion, always moving, always adapting, always evolving, always innovating, always disrupting, always changing. I've touched on this idea several times over the past 200 plus soliloquies and guests. From the swimming shark to the hummingbird to the floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee of a legendary boxer, Muhammad Ali to be precise. Fluidity, flow, or flux is both external and internal. And our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to find both the balance and our own personal level of tolerance, competence, and confidence to become masters of the flux. Flux capacitors. There, I said it. And now, even with a little bit of an interruption from Siri over there, which I don't know if you picked up, it's time for our guest. It's time for April Rinne. And before I introduce her, let's see what you guys are saying. We've got a LinkedIn user who said, glad to see you're doing well. Manif adds, submission is a way of liberation. And I actually cannot wait to hear what April has to say about it. And Harold adds, earthquake actually in Melbourne, magnitude 6. So in addition to poor Melbourne, in addition to being locked up and locked in and locked down, now they're coping with an earthquake. It's 2021, Harold. I mean, what else did you expect? So let's bring her on to the show. And Glenn says, hey, April, be gentle with Joseph. He's recovering from heart surgery, no doubt. I don't need her to be gentle because I think that she is behind one of the most unbelievable ideas and certainly relevant ones. A World Economic Forum young global leader and ranked one of the 50 leading female futurists in the world by Forbes, April Rinne is a change navigator. She helps individuals and organizations rethink and reshape their relationship with change, uncertainty, and a world in flux. She's a trusted advisor, speaker, investor, adventurer. I love that word. She's been to over 100 countries. She is an insatiable handstander and author of Flux, 8 Superpowers for Thriving in Constant Change. I'm getting tongue-tied because I'm so excited. Let's just bring her onto the damn show. April Rinne, welcome to the show, and be gentle with me.
Thank you so much, Joseph. This is such a treat. And well, you nailed lots of things you've nailed already. So I'm just excited for this conversation.
All right. Well, we'll save the different nails in the coffin of the status quo. And we will get to them in a moment. You are guest number 280. And as I always say, my best guest already in 280 episodes. Of course, I will say the same thing tomorrow. But for tonight and for right now, it is only you and me here. And we get to talk about an amazing subject. But before we do, if you thought you were going to get away with not revealing some fun facts about yourself, you are sorely mistaken. So what did our investigators learn about you? Well, as maybe alluded to in the intro, you are a grand stander, grand handstander. I love this. You do handstands around the world. And if you go to aprilrinne.com /handstands, you will, I mean, I looked for Galapagos, I looked for Machu Picchu. I just settled on Rio and Rome. It's so brilliant because it is a personal branding masterpiece. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Tell us a little bit about the origins. Where did it start? How did it evolve? And it's just an amazing idea.
Yeah, you did your homework. So this is actually now at my age, so to speak, it's actually quite fun to be able to talk about this. So I learned to do handstands as a child. I was in gymnastics, so I did get a bit of a head start. Then I quit gymnastics, got injured, quit, all of that, but I kept doing handstands. And then there came a point in time, some decades later, when I realized that all of the people I'd been doing handstands with as a kid were no longer doing handstands, and I still was. Then it became a sort of thing. And in my 20s in particular, I was traveling a lot. I still am today, but I spent 4 years in my 20s where I just had a backpack and a shoestring budget, and I guided hiking and biking trips for half the year to earn income to then go travel the rest of the year. So for 4 years, I had a very nomadic lifestyle. And family at that time, they kind of set me the challenge. They said, hey, you know, some people like take a photo of a teddy bear or that guy that does the chicken dance, right? They're like, you can do better than that. Why don't you start taking a handstand when you travel? And I don't think they realized how seriously I would take that challenge, because that was 20 plus years ago. And I've been going hard ever since. And now I do yoga. So I keep the flexibility, I keep the balance, all of that. But it's become, in a way, my signature. When it comes to Flux, I often talk about it having an upside down perspective on the world and how that's actually really helpful for navigating change. And then I joke often that, you know, literally I go upside down all the time. And in terms of my travels, it's actually become this wonderful icebreaker, because my husband does travel with me sometimes, and so he's the photographer. But oftentimes I'm traveling on my own, which means that, again, often in countries where English is not the native language, I probably don't speak the local language, but I have to find somebody locally and convince them to take my phone, take a photo of me while I stand on my hands, and it's all going to go just fine. And these people look at me like, I don't think I understand what you're saying. And if I do understand what you're saying, you're crazy. But then once I do the handstand, we sort of figure it out. Then it ends up being laughter, and kids sort of start tumbling in, and a small crowd gathers. And not that it's about me, I actually use it as an icebreaker to get to know locals, and have actually met a lot of people that I wouldn't have otherwise that way.
It's amazing, and it's part of, essentially, it's part of your personal brand. You know, it's something you could do on stage. It's something that people are going to look forward to, and it's so simple and elegant in its simplicity, but it completely differentiates you.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I do have to say is, for many years, it only was the last 3 or 4 years, I think, that I got to have so many handstands in so many places, and people kept hearing about them that I had to create a site. But once I did, all of a sudden it was like things sort of exploded. So that's when I think for a long time, I sort of thought I shouldn't share it. It was like, seemed too much about me. And then I was kind of like, own this, because my goal is actually to be 100 years old still doing handstands. If that can happen, I'll be very happy. But it has definitely become part of my brand. You'll note of my personal website, it's typically the only page I send people to. But it's something that they rarely forget. One thing I will bring up, though, is that I still haven't figured out how to easily do a handstand in a Zoom screen if I'm like here, right? Before lockdown, I could go to an event like in person. I would do handstand lessons, and we'd have a lot of fun. But that, unfortunately, is harder to do in the virtual world.
I have an idea, which this is my idea. It's a little bit of a hack, but it might involve doing that. How about that? Would that work?
Well, see, already I'm seeing something differently. I'm seeing you, and I love bringing this up, and it relates to a little bit more Flux, but like that sense, well done. But I still can't see that your feet are above your head. So you got to kind of we're getting there.
Yeah, I feel my lighting just went took a turn for the worse as well. My cardiologist might be a little bit concerned.
That's true. But one thing I do like to tell people is that, and again, take this literally, take this figuratively, but when you see things, if you're struggling with a problem or you're trying to figure something out, look at it from a different perspective. And I'm like, sometimes when I go upside down, I can look at the same thing and it looks totally different. And every now and again, it looks even better, right? So I'll still take you right side up, Joseph, but every now and again, you flip something and you're like, why didn't I see it that way? And, it's something that we all can do. One thing I will bring up, I realize that you've had, cardiac surgery and whatnot. Time and time again, this was not part of when I did handstands originally, but all of the studies out there show that doing inversions, so that can be a handstand, that can also be a headstand, that can also simply be touching your toes. But anything that gets blood moving to your head regularly is shown across the board. Speaking of Alzheimer's Day, right? It increases your mental acuity. It increases your longevity. Getting blood to the head is a great thing for overall health. So I'll put in a plug there as well. I bet your doctor, under the right circumstances, would actually really like for you to be doing some inversions as well.
No, it's amazing. I mean, there were so many amazing insights that came out of what you just said. But before we move on, Brito is here and he said, great show so far, sir. So hello to Michael Brito. And Michael, have you booked for the show? I hope you have. I think you might have. So it will be great to have him on the show at some point as well. I have two little anecdotes to share. The one is, I used to say that in my travels as well, that I collected runs. So I would always try and run in every market that I went to. I remember running through this ecological reserve in Buenos Aires, and and the more unusual it is, you think like, oh my God, I've like run in this country, in this city, in this city, in this city. But one of my it's crazy memory, I was in Athens and we went to the original stadium where the original Olympic Games took place, and they've got the podium there, and I stood obviously in first place, and there were two Asian tourists, and I had them stand. I asked them if they'd stand in the second and third, the silver and bronze positions, and then we all basically, I raised my hands and I had them hold my hands, so they were kind of like raising me up, and I asked them in a posed photo and video to look very sad, whereas I was of course celebrating, and then I sang the Star-Spangled Banner at the top of my lungs. It was so like embarrassing, and they were like amazing. And then afterwards they said, "Can you do that for us?" I'm like, "No, man, I gotta go." I'm kidding. I did do it for them, but it's funny how like when you engage with a stranger, right, with a tourist, how like you can create a moment that can live forever. And Manif said, I saw his comment earlier, which I thought was amazing. He said, never thought of a photo signature. And that's what you've done. You've created like a photo signature, April, which is quite brilliant.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I can't underscore the motivation it brings me to know that for me, I mean, sure, it's a way to stay fit. And most of all, actually, this is a total side note, but might be of interest as well. Doing a handstand, being good at doing handstands, yes, it takes strong arms. But more than that, being good at doing a handstand is all about your core. It's all about your stomach, and it's all about being in alignment, knowing how to have your shoulders over your waist, over your hips, and so like being in that straight line. And if you're in alignment, it actually takes very little, if any, energy to stay in a handstand. So there's a piece about physics, but I bring this up because for me, yes, it's a good piece of physical fitness and balance and alignment for sure, back to what we were saying about flow. But more than that, for me, it's become this kind of social tool. It's a way to break the ice with locals. It's a way to bring some surprise and delight and joy into people's lives, because most people don't have someone else asking them to take a photo of them upside down. It's just this kind of like, oh, and then they remember it. And I've stayed in touch with a lot of these people, and it's just been really fun. And of course, you know, it costs nothing. And it's one of those things that you don't know too many people who have done it. So for everyone else, like whatever your signature might be, I call it also like my party piece, right? If there's a talent show or something, I always know what I'm going to do. But it's something that that's not offensive, that's memorable, that makes other people smile.
I love that. So I'm going to write that down. Number 1 is memorable. Number 2 is not offensive. Number 3 is make them smile.
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost a mantra for life.
For life. Yeah.
Let's get into this. Let's get into this discussion and this conversation about flux.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, and I'm just thinking out loud here, which is a dangerous thing. This concept of alignment, everything being in some kind of order. Is there a connection to flux? Is there a connection in terms of like having everything, priorities, perspective lined up in order to be able to see the world the way it should be seen, in order to act on how the world is kind of presenting itself?
Oh, I love this, Joseph. And I have to actually, at some point in just a minute, I have to sort of back up to the definitions that you began with, because that was such a brilliant
Go for
start.
it. Go for it.
Well, let me just touch upon the alignment. I think what's fascinating, so if we think about alignment as something that is fixed and like, I'm going to build it this way and it's going to stay that way. I'm going to go up into a handstand and I'm going to stay there forever, right? That is the antithesis of what we're talking about. Being in a handstand in alignment means knowing that every millisecond your body is actually shifting. And what you're trying to do is keep all the pieces more or less kind of where they want to be. So it's much more aligned with what you were talking about, being in the flow, like a river. Like a river flows, but a river is different each time, at each millisecond, right? That when I talk about being in alignment, I'm strengthening my muscles, literally, figuratively, so that I can better balance countervailing forces. But am I ever really, quote, in alignment such that I could never move again? No, I'm actually constantly in motion when I'm upside down. But the better I get at grooving this muscle, the less effort and energy it takes to maintain that sense. We could think of it as flow, but I'm flow in a very static. I look like I'm peaceful, right? The handstand that looks like I'm just hanging out there. That takes a lot of work to be able to do that. A lot of training, when we think about strengthening our muscles, right? It takes a lot of practice. But when you get good at that practice, then it's actually very easy. And I think that translates really well into the concept of flux and what I talk about as having a flux mindset, which we can get into. But briefly, just on the definitions, I love that you happen to bring up the version of flux that does show up in British military history of basically internal bleeding. And this is hilarious because it is a legit definition. It is rather arcane and not much of how most people think of flux today. But in my publisher, actually, one of the editors had a PhD in British history. And he was like, early on, he was like, there is no way we can title this book Flux because, and everyone else was like, never heard of that. So I've been down that road before. It actually always makes me chuckle when we bring up that very not so friendly, not so healthy definition of flux. But the way I like to also tee it up for people in terms of definition is that flux is both a noun, but it's also a verb. And so as a noun, as you said, continuous movement, motion, change, fluidity. But as a verb, learning how to flux means learning how to become fluid. And I love that because you can sort of think of the world is in flux today, but we all as humans need to learn better how to flux. You could think of that as how to go with the flow. You could think of that as how to maintain this impossible alignment and whatnot. But I love that kind of play on words because we need to learn how to flux. And we're not very good at that as humans on the whole.
If you want to join the Flux Mindset Explorers Club, you can do that by going to Flux Mindset. And by the way, the Flux Mindset Explorers Club seems like it is an email newsletter, but I'm sure it's more than that. And I was just like, this is brilliant. I know about the Mile High Club. I mean, apparently, I've heard rumors about it. But what is the Flux Mindset Explorers Club? I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, so it's a collective. So I always like to tell people, it's not, so there's no pressure, there's no obligation, there's no cost. This is a collective, a kind of motley crew of wonderful people from around the world, all of whom are interested in developing a flux mindset and learning more about this thing called flux. And it's not necessarily, so right now, yes, it is a Google group. We have periodic calls, full disclosure, as my book has been launching. It has not been very active. Me as a community manager, if you will, I have been completely overwhelmed by the launch itself. But in the past, what's great, it's a lot of sharing of best practices and examples and thoughts and feelings. And it's a very high trust community. So everyone is welcome, but I do like to get to know something about each person who's joining. And what's lovely, I mean, it's all different kinds of demographics, all continents except for Antarctica are represented. And it's just people saying, I know that I can improve my relationship to change, or this word flux really intrigues me. Why wouldn't I join, right? And then you start mixing them together, and the group itself, the club, is very much evolving. So even as I wrote my book, the FMXC, as we call it, FMXC, and if you are a member, you are an FMXC, CEE, they were extraordinarily helpful in developing the book, in thinking through examples, and they were kind of like my beta testers, if you will. And now we have a whole archive of information and resources that we share and so on and so forth. And now I am kind of at this crossroads. I mean, FMXC is going to continue doing what it's been doing, but now with the book out, it can become much more. So I think that we'll have theme-based discussions and, superpower deep dives and et cetera, including also, real quick, that some FMXCs are saying, I want to go launch something around topic X. So it's becoming this kind of generative thing as well. So
no, I was going to say, where everything is moving to now in this creator economy with NFTs, with Discord servers, it's really, I mean, even though people are referring to it as Web 3.0, it's really just community 1.0. And it's amazing to me why more authors don't use and connect with community, not just to stress test but essentially to not even crowdsource, but community source a book, and that's what you're doing. By the way, Manif says he's got the audio book already. This month's credit has been waiting for a worthy point of view. Upside down it is. So you've made at least one sale, and hopefully many more as well. April, before we move into these superpowers, two things. One is I did want to just touch on this going back to the handstands. Amazing how this all goes back to the handstand. That you said when you are actually in alignment and in an upside down, everything is moving at the same time. It's almost like this juggling act. I mean, you see it as well sometimes with in these America's Got Talent, or where people are balancing on on a roller, on a board, on another roller, on a board, and everything's moving in different directions, left and right and up and down and sideways, and yet they're standing still. And I found this quote because I always find a quote for my guests. And this is the quote that I found for you today. Everything is in a state of flux, including the status quo. And I just love that. And I was like, it's one of those things. This is Robert Byrne. I see these quotes. They're like Yogi Berra's. I'm like, that is an awesome quote. Not really sure I understand what it means, but I'm sure my guest would. How do you interpret this idea that everything is in a state of flux, including the status quo?
Yeah. So this takes us a little, it's a fantastic quote. Thank you. And I love all the research that you do and the way that you connect dots in your soliloquy, and just terrific. This takes us in a slightly different direction, but also very germane to the book. And I like to remind people that I did not write the book about 2020. I did not write the book about any one kind of change, even though 2020 and what we've all been through over the last 18 months, it's incredible validation and acceleration of my ideas. but I've been writing Flux since 2018. So it was a better part of 3 years really in the act of writing, but it was more like 3 decades in the making. So I have been layering and observing and researching and traveling and connecting dots around how humans relate to change for a long time. And even before everything, the world in flux of the last year and a half, I was really concerned about humans' relationships to change, and particularly changes we can't control, and this uncertainty, and the pace of change is ever faster. And, I kind of treat it like we're looking at a train wreck in terms of our ability to cope with this much change, unless we upgrade our relationship to it, hence Flux Mindset, Flux Superpowers, which we'll come back to. But this quote by Robert Bird really brings up something else that now, it is germane to the theory, the thesis behind Flux, but I think we're all starting to feel it a lot more in 2021. And that is that we're looking at a future in which there is no end game and there is no steady state other than more change. And that's a new kind of, I think not for everybody, but for most people, it's a really new way of looking at the world and the future and your place in it. And it's very, very unsettling for people because most of all, I think many of us, including myself, for most of my life, right, we were taught that change happens and then you react to it. Like something's going to happen, I'm going to react, and then life's going to move on. You just keep doing that, but it's like react to change as a one-off. But if you do the right thing, then you'll go back to normal. And now we're looking at this like, no, actually, there is constant, relentless change and an ever faster pace of change. And what we're looking at is you're never, even as you're reacting to that one thing, something else is changing. And back to, this ability to let go. And I forget who it was who said that letting go is really freeing and empowering. In fact, that we can, or certainly trained, taught, socialized, whatever, in many ways that we can command and predict and control the world and control the future and how things are going to play out. And nothing could be further from the truth. And so this whole notion of the status quo being in flux, yeah, and it's going to be that way. I don't know. I would put some Jaffe coin on this. It's going to be that way forever. We're not going back to some kind of static, fixed world. And this is where I love resilience often comes up in how is flux like resilience and so forth. And, a lot of people think of resilience as elastic. So you're going to bounce back to where you were before, kind of like an elastic band. But thank goodness, resilience is not one size fits all. It's not one kind of definition. Resilience also means plastic. So moldable to any kind of shape, new shapes, whatnot. We need to be thinking about our resilience not as elasticity for bouncing back to something, but we need to be thinking about it as plastic. We are forging brand new territory as humans individually and as humanity collectively. And that's really scary for some people. And it's also really, really exciting because I kind of feel like we've all been given the opportunity of a lifetime to do things better.
I'm going to pay a Jaffe coin to attend your next keynote because this feels like a Flux masterclass. And wait, we're not done yet because you've developed these superpowers. Why I was so excited about tonight is, over 280 interviews, actually more than 280 because some guests have come back multiple times. This red thread, as Tamsin Webster would talk about, this red thread of superpowers has come up time and time again. What are these new skills, these new superpowers that we will need to be successful in this world that we live in? And you've come up with 8. I just want to make a point before we touch on them. And you very kindly said, which ones do you want me to talk about? I'm going to flip the script on you and say, which ones do you want to talk about? But I almost thought about if it's true that the only constant is change. And, with me and heart surgery this year, I was like, well, of course it's 2021. What did you expect? Of course there's going to be an infection afterwards. You're going to end up. And the more, my mantra now for my life is you knock me down twice, I'll get back 3 times. You knock me down 3 times, I'll get back 4. And I almost thought about, work with me on this one, that maybe we'll co-author a piece or something together. But this idea that we need the corporate version of an SSRI, of like a Lexapro. We need to be able to get into a position where no matter what you throw at us, we're going to be better equipped to be able to handle, and for it not to destroy us, and to be able to, it's corporate coping skills, if you will. That's how you live and survive and thrive, I think, in this Flux era.
Yeah. So maybe we do co-write something. Couple points I want to make here, and I'll get to the Flux Superpowers. But before I do that, kind of the Flux Superpowers are built upon something else, and that is what I call the Flux Mindset. And the Flux Mindset, and both of these are core concepts of the book, and Flux Mindset is in the intro, and then actually each of the 8 Flux Superpowers is a chapter in the book. So it's very easy in terms of structure and reading and user friendliness and so forth. But a Flux Mindset, and I am not a neuroscientist. I am not a psychologist. I am not doing a heavy-handed, top-down academic, empirically evidence, theory. When I say theory, this is a layperson who's looking at the world, having thought about this for nearly 30 years and saying, here's what I actually think is going on. A Flux Mindset is simply acknowledging, one, that your relationship to change can improve. It needs help. And I have not met a single human on the planet that has said to me, like, change, tick that box, like I'm good to go, don't need any help. Everybody needs help in some way, not necessarily in the same ways, but we all love some changes and really struggle and resist others. So it's acknowledging that your relationship to change can improve. And it's also the state of mind that bit by bit, and again, this doesn't happen overnight. This is not a quick fix. This is a lifetime practice. But it's the state of mind, the ability to see all change, good or bad, whether you want it or not, the bad stuff, your surgeries, all this stuff. Each and every change is an opportunity for growth, for learning, and for improvement. And so even the stuff you wish hadn't happened, it's still an opportunity for growth. But a lot of people, it's like, no, life just shorted me. Life just treated me bad. Like that shouldn't have happened. And they get angry and they resist. And it is back to the whole, can you actually release and let go in order to lean into uncertainty? Can you let go of what you're trying so hard to control to recognize that you actually can't control that much? So it's this tension and this kind of paradox. So the first step in this theory of flux is to open a flux mindset. But then the second step is to use this flux mindset to develop the 8 flux superpowers. And so each of the flux superpowers is a skill, a practice. I like to think of this as the quote, how to thrive in constant change. So how does that break down? What are the different ways in which our relationship, that we can improve our relationship to change?
All right.
So there you go. Do you want me to go through? I can go through all 8 pretty quickly.
No, I was going to say we need to leave people wanting more. Maybe we'll even touch on one when Jay comes on in a few moments. Why don't you pick one and touch on that, and then we'll maybe come back to it right at the end. Another one.
I'm torn because this seems like such a cool crowd. Well, one that's already been touched upon that I think might be actually quite rich, and if we have limited time, it was referenced in some of the chat. It's actually the last one. It's chapter 8, and it's let go of the future. And so this is all about our relationship to control and how tricky it is to let go of what we desperately want to predict and command and control and engineer. And so this superpower basically says that we need to let go of the future, and I'll come back to that, in order to let better futures, plural, emerge. Now, a lot of times people say to me, they're like, you're a futurist. You can't say let go of the future, like you're not allowed. And then I'm like, let me explain what I mean. To be clear, when I say let go of the future, I do not mean giving up. I do not mean failure. I do not mean doomsdaying, none of that. What I'm actually looking at is that we need to radically reshape our relationship to control in order to thrive in a world in flux, because we are so, pardon my speech, hell-bent on wanting to know exactly what's going to happen. Like, humans love to know what's going to happen. We do not like uncertainty. We do not like not knowing. And yet a future and a world in flux demand that we actually get much better at this. And so going back, the chapter goes into a lot more detail, but it is this sense of we actually need to get out of our own way and realize that letting go of the future, meaning I need the future to go this one way, and I'm going to make sure that it happens this way, which is a futile quest. And it's actually, you know, how I like to say it is we think we're after control. We think we can control. What we're really chasing is just the illusion of control. And when we can let go of that illusion, what you find is it's actually really empowering. It's actually really freeing. And importantly, when you let go of it has to go this way, all of a sudden you realize you've been missing a lot of different possible futures, a lot of different other ways of seeing the world and how it's going to play out, that you had kind of suffocated because you were so focused on this one thing that needed to happen.
I will leave you with one thought, which is, you know, my analogy was a current. And of course, instead of thinking about the future and what's going to happen tomorrow, let's focus on the present, on the current situation. And right now, I have to say, currently, I'm having a great time. And I want you to just sit in the green room for a moment, maybe do a handstand or two, but we're going to bring on Moonah, and then we'll bring you back. Maybe we'll touch on another superpower. Please follow April on Twitter, on Instagram, pretty much on all the socials. She's April Rinne. Buy the book, buy the audiobook. Go to fluxmindset.com and see whether you have a Flux Mindset, and of course, join the Flux Mindset Explorers Club. April, thank you so much. This was awesome, and I will see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, that was April Rinne, and she will be back shortly. But now it's time for the very, very famous Moonah. And before we bring him on, just as a reminder, if you want to earn yourself a Jaffe coin, what I love about this QR code, it is only live until 10 p.m. So it's only live for another 12 minutes, and it rewards and recognizes people that are with us right now, because it's currently what we focus on. Instead of worried about tomorrow's audience and viewer, we worry about right here and right now. And right now is time for Mr. Moonah. Jay is the man, the one man behind. He's Broke Fuse, and Broke Fuse is a one-man blues band from Toronto. Jay is, you know, a guy that I knew back in the day in the social media, the beginnings of social media. So to have him here as a creator, I mean, I always knew he was creative. It's just an absolute treat. During lockdown, he recorded and released 2 albums, Why Should I Be Blue and Rocket Ride. He's also a former member of the band Uncle Seth. Now that brings back memories. And an erstwhile Second Life resident. How can I not be thrilled to bring him onto the show? Moonah, you've been performing and singing in the background. You've been distracting me for the last 45 minutes. Welcome back.
That's what I'm here
Devo
for.
Dapto says, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. So, thank you, by the way, for your very good, correct pronunciation of Toronto. That was excellent.
Toronto.
I heard you do it. Good for you. Appreciate that.
All right. So listen, I am going to, normally I make the same joke every day, which is I'm going to fade into Bolivian. But I'm not really going to do that one, simply because April, I mean, the thing we found out about her, she was actually held up at gunpoint and kidnapped in Bolivia. So we're not going to fade into Bolivian, but I am going to go into the background. Jay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do what you do best. Tonight, you're going to be performing the song Stingray Blues from your latest album, Rocket Ride.
Yes.
Take it away, my friend.
Thank you, sir. All right, I got to step back because as a one-man band, you got to get in the right position to do things. So give me a moment here. Oh, got to get over here. Got to get the foot.
Go for it.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, okay, good. I got this. Come creeping across the floor. Dead eyes, tough to ignore. Think you hold the key to life and liberty, but you are just a stingray. You ain't nothing, baby, nothing more. There's a howling in the air. The best had best beware. You turn your eyes away. The bleeding of the day. But you ain't nothing, baby. You are just a stingray, no one cares. When the waves are whipping at your gate, you find out much too late that once that false facade begins to crack, you'll never get it back. It's one sheer heart attack. Boom. Once were sights to see. I drove my galaxy across some orbit plane to oceans, snow range. But you ain't nothing, baby. You are just a stingray to me. You ain't nothing, baby. You are just a stingray. You ain't nothing, baby. You are just a stingray to me. Thank you very much. I saw you waving the light there. We don't have lighters anymore. You're doing it right.
You know, I was hoping that that I wasn't going to distract you. You know what? I'm so pissed that I don't have my my air horn, my vuvuzela, my croucher, and that was awesome.
Dude, I played in bars during Raptors playoff games. You cannot distract me.
That was awesome. What did you think, April?
That was amazing, Jay. I was like,
thank you, April.
I was kind of back there like doing my fangirl thing. So I want to know, one, who's the kid on the wall? Very cute. The painting.
My daughter.
Oh
my wife got me that. My wife got me that a number of years ago. She's much bigger now.
Okay, well that's adorable. Sorry,
14.
but then what was the sequence? How did you learn to layer the instruments? My brain gets distracted with like more than 3 guitar string. Like, what was it like?
I learned how to play electric organ when I was fairly young. My mother was my mother who had Alzheimer's, by the way. So it's a very poignant day for me as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Joseph. Thank you. But my mother was an organ player. She had a pump organ actually, and then we got a Lowry electric organ when I was a kid. So you had to learn how to play two. You're playing chords with one hand, you're playing melody with another hand, you're playing bass with the foot. So I feel like that was the early version of the coordination. And then I learned all these instruments along the way. And then I said, well, if I can do that thing, I can probably do this thing. So I kind of put it all together. And I did spend some time. People often ask, did you wake up one morning and decide you were going to do that? No. I practiced for about 6 months with a metronome, quietly in the basement, and then loudly in the basement, to my wife and daughter's chagrin and my cat's chagrin, very much. And but yeah, got reasonably good at it, and then started making albums and stuff.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was trying to find Devo Dapto for you. Where is he? If you look up, he's somewhere there. Can you see him up there somewhere? I think he's.
I can't. It's hard to see.
I'm gonna find him for you. But Devo Dapto, back from our Second Life days, that was kind of crazy. Who were you in Second Life again?
I was Weiss Pisces.
Gesundheit.
And I found this, Joseph, on my bookshelf.
Oh my goodness. I might have to send you a Jaffe coin for that.
Them were the days. Thank you. As you know, I was a fairly early Jaffe coin investor, and I think I've lost some money since then. But that's fine. It's fine.
Only in the last week, but overall, you got to be up.
That's probably in my head in the end. April, I was thinking about something you said about the idea of like however you put it, but like forgetting about the future. And one of the things is I was making these 2 records over lockdown. Initially, the intention was I made the first one really early, thinking this is just going to be 3 months, and then I'm going to be back, out playing. And my sort of intention was I'm going to use this to book gigs and do all those good things. And then, we cycled around and around. And then when we got well into it, I for a while I did have like a long time where I'm like, we're not going to be able to play concerts, and woe was me. And I was sitting in the basement. I'm like, well, I'm still in the basement. I should just make another album. So I ended up making 2. Hopefully there won't be a third, but we can't control the future, as you say, right?
And letting go of what it has to be.
Right.
It's fascinating because actually, and unfortunately, so I am not the musician. I went through the mandatory 5 years of piano as a kid, and then my piano teacher was like, don't you have anything better to do? Meanwhile, I love sports. So, right, like my sister and I, like one of us did, like we both were thrown into everything, and my sister excelled at music and arts and performance, and I was the opposite. I was sort of the tomboy. So I say this with a caveat, because what I've learned though about Flux and looking at what things are the best teachers of Flux, and actually, Joseph, nature is one of the best teachers of Flux. So you think about water, you think about how trees grow, you think about change of season, right? Change of seasons happens every year. You think about like the cycle of life. But actually music and how it's composed, there's also a kind of fluxiness to it when done well. So I was going to offer that up because both of those themes have come up quite a bit in my research. Yeah.
I love fluxiness, by the way, but the other thing, and it comes back to what you said, which is there's no end game. Mm-hmm. So I guess there are 2 ways to think about it. The glass half empty, the pessimistic way is to say it's Groundhog Day, right? It's like, same shit, different day. But the positive way to think about it is this idea of rebirth and renewal and the circle and I think, like, first of all, someone like Jay, you've continued to renew yourself and reinvent yourself and evolve, and the fact that here we are all these years later, it's both surreal and serendipitous and just special. And that's the third S, which is, it's amazing how our lives have weaved around like DNA strands, and here we are back together again, and picking up where we left off. And this idea of the regenerative nature of nature, April, to your point, is exactly that. It's the fact that we get an opportunity to do it over again and get better and learn and grow. And I have to say one more thing, which is on one hand, I say to people, if you didn't take advantage of the last 18 months, on one hand, shame on you. If you didn't record an album, if you didn't figure out if you didn't read Flux, if you didn't do these things, but at the same time, guess what? Current, right? Your future starts today. So do it now. If you didn't do it yesterday, do it today. And don't regret tomorrow what you could have done today. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And nature has cycles of renewal, but it has adaptation, right? Like adaptation. Is that a word? That's not a word.
It is now.
It was going adaption and flexiness. Those are our new words for the night, right?
Yes, flexi, and absolutely.
It's not a good night if you haven't invented 2 words.
Right. I have a whole, actually, I can send it to you guys later. I can post it. It's not on my website right now, but I have a whole, what I call a fluxicon. It is the language of change, the lexicon for flux.
I love it. Glenn says good night, April, and we are at the top of the hour. I was going to say, I would like Jay to record a cover of I'm Too Sexy, and instead it's going to be called I'm Too Fluxy. I'm too fluxy for the future.
Yeah. Well,
too fluxy for the future. Too fluxy for the future. So fluxy, I don't know what rhymes with future. What rhymes with future?
I don't know.
I gotta go to Rhyme Zone.
Pewter? Future. I don't know.
There's a tough one.
And on that note, and this is what happens with Late Night Jaffe, I want to thank my guests today, Jay Moonah, April Rinne. There is a Canadian connection, and that's why they're such nice people. Got to say it. But as always, we end with the grand doyen, the arbiter, the judge, the jury, and the executioner. I'm not talking about Dr. now from My 600-Pound Life who introduced the show. I'm talking about the man who signs off, Chuck Norris. What did he think about April Rinne and Jay Moonah?
You are Chuck Norris approved.
I'll be back tomorrow night. Take care.
Make it better than that.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.